Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Willy. If you've been watching me on Embroidery Hub, you saw that I showed you how to manually digitize patches, 3D puff embroidery, and more. Well, today I'm going to show you a special tool that will allow you to auto-digitize your artwork and compare the pros and cons of both auto-digitizing and manual digitizing. In fact, I'll be auto-digitizing and manually digitizing the same design on our Chroma digitizing software, which I've linked it in the description below, and then embroidering it for you so that you can decide for yourself which method you prefer. All right, let's jump right in. All right guys, so let's go over the digitizing portion of this project. Like I said before, I'm going to do both auto-digitizing and manual digitizing. Now we'll be using Chroma and I'm going to be using the Lux tier. If you guys want to learn a little bit more about Chroma, or if you want to download a free trial, scroll down to the description below and there's going to be a link there for you. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that we always do is import our image. As you can see, I already have it imported in here. Now let's go ahead and start off with auto-digitizing, which is the fastest thing we could do. And let's see how that comes out. So let's go ahead and press on auto digitizing, which is going to be on the top left corner, like a little circle around it. Now once you click on that, you're going to have this new window open. And on this window, you could just simply select what kind of stitches you like. I'm just going to go ahead and select auto so it can choose the stitches for me. All right, so on the next page, you're going to see that you're able to adjust the size. So just for training purposes, I'm going to leave it as is, and I'm going to press on next. Now the next page that comes after that, you're going to see the colors. Here, the auto-digitizing will let you decide what colors you would like it for it to be able to auto-digitize it. So let's say, for example, you have a background that you don't want, you can deselect it. In my case here, I'm just going to select it so we can see how it'll auto-digitize it. So let's go ahead and let's click on finish. And now just give it a second, it's gonna load and it's going to auto-generate all your stitches. All right, so here we have our stitches. As you can tell, now the border has been auto-digitized. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete it. You could always edit all these, but now not only that, but if we zoom in here, you're going to see different types of stitches. Like this one here is a satin stitch, and then you have different angles around, like on this side and this side are different angles. So there's a lot of little imperfections that you could possibly see it once you embroider it. If you scroll down, you can see these are also satin stitches. And down here on the letters. Now on the letters, I tend to use my satin stitches for letters, just like this I, but the rest are not satin stitches, they're complex fills, so they might not look as good. But what we're trying to achieve here is just to do it quick, and this is a very high quality design, so it will do a pretty good job. Now a quick tip for auto-digitizing is that we would want to get the highest resolution we possibly can, so that we don't have to go in there and make a lot of changes. And on top of that, it's a simple design, okay? So as you can see on this one, wherever there is a gradient of colors or a shade, you're gonna see it's not gonna do a really good job. Now on the rest, they're pretty good. So let's go ahead and delete this background. All right, now that we deleted the background, I really don't need the bitmap, which is the backdrop that it auto-digitized. So let's delete that as well. Let's delete this white border that I'm not going to be using here. And now what I like to do, just so that everything can look consistent, is that I like to grab the whole design by clicking on either side, doesn't matter, and holding it down until you see like a box that's kind of like covering the whole design. And then I will go and right click on the whole design and convert everything into a complex fill. So now everything looks the same. You don't have so much inconsistencies in there. Now as you can tell, the gradient still doesn't look perfect. But you never know, maybe you could do a good enough job. It depends on what your standards are. So you're probably not able to notice it from here, but when you're auto-digitizing, the auto-digitizing feature will never overlap your stitches. So that's very important because remember that the threads are pulling against each other as much as possible. So if you have two parts of the design that are not overlapping, when they pull against each other, they're basically going to leave a gap in between. So always try to overlap as much as you possibly can on any of your designs. Now as you can see here, I'm going to my slow redraw just so that you can see how it'll look once it starts to embroider. And this is what the machine is actually going to do. I always like to do this just to make sure that I don't mess up on anything. And that's just a little extra feature just to make sure that, you know, everything is the way it should be. Now in this case, there is a lot of things that I wouldn't embroider, but let's just see how the auto digitizing actually does. Now, let's go ahead and go over the manual digitizing portion of this project. So now we already have our design here. Let's go over and start manually digitizing this same design. So let's start with the border, and I'm going to start with a steel stitch, which is over on the left middle of the screen here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the green that I want to use. And this color looks pretty clean, so let's go ahead and select it. Now I'm going to start with the steel stitch. I'm going to be doing the green border first. So let's start over on this side, and I'm going to just try to get it in the middle as much as I possibly can. Now there are some short keys that you can use. For example, I'm using here the shift. I'm holding it down, and this basically just lets me have straight lines without having to put my mouse right over the area where I need it to be. And you also have another short key, which is to have curved lines, and that's by pressing down the control button. And as you can see, if I let go of the control button, I'm back to having straight lines. And essentially all I'm really doing here is just tracing over this border. Now we're going to be doing a lot of this. It's going to be kind of repetitive, but once we get to the part where we'll start making small edits to it, that's when it gets really tricky. All right, so now let's close this border by going to the first node that we started with and just clicking it right there. Now let's right click outside of the design, and as you can see, we have our border with the color that we have chosen. Now there's some things that we have to do, so let's go over to the shaping tool and let's make some minor edits. I'm going to get all of the nodes that are on the top and align them, and the nodes on the bottom and align them as well. So let's go ahead and just select all the ones on the top first, and to align them, there's an aligning tool on the top of your screen where it says align to the top, and now they're aligned to the top. And we're going to do the same thing on the bottom. Going to select the nodes that are on the bottom, and we're going to press the align to the bottom. Now you could do that to everything else. I feel like everything else might be just fine. So now let's go over to the next thing we have to do, which is making this border thicker. So let's go over to the right of the screen and let's put some thickness in there. So it was at 3.0 millimeters. So maybe let's go to 5.0. 5.0 is okay. We could have a little thicker than that. So let's go maybe 8.0, and that seems about right. Okay, so let's move on now to the white border. I'm going to do the same thing I just did. So let's start with our steel. Let's go over to a white color and select it. And now let's follow the same process. And we have our white border. Now let's make some edits to this one, just like we did to the green. So let's go over to the shaping tool. And as you can see, some of them need some adjustments. So let's go and align the ones on the top, then align the ones on the bottom. All right, so another thing we're going to do here is maybe edit this corners over here. Maybe just edit it and extend it a little bit. All right, now let's make this white border a little thicker as well. Let's go over and use 8.0, the same as the green one. Let's see how that looks. Okay, that looks a little better. So as you can see, we have the white layer that's on top of the green layer. We don't want that. We want the green layer on top of the white. Now to do that is very simple. All you have to do is right click on the layer, go down to order, and let's order it one step backward. All right, so let's go ahead and keep going. Let's do this white line here that is part of the border. We're gonna go back to the steel. We're gonna go back and select the white, and we're just going to do a little bit of overlapping from white to white, and we're going to right click outside. Now let's go ahead and adjust this line as well. Let's go to the shaping tool. Let's go over to the width, and let's put it at 8.0 millimeters. Okay, the next thing that we have to do is move this white line to the back as well. So let's right click on this line and order it backward. Now what I like to do is join both white steps together, meaning the white border and the white line, have them be one so I don't have an extra trim, and that just takes time. That's how you can minimize your trims while you're doing the digitizing. So let's go ahead and just select them both. So I'm going to hold down the shift button and select both of these white steps. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go over to where it says combine. Now as you can see, this is now just one step. That's exactly what we want to see. All right, now so let's move on to the background. We have three different backgrounds. We have a white, an orange, and a green background. So let's start with the white. I'm going to go over to a complex fill tool, which is over on the left side of your screen, and I'm going to select white since I'm going to be doing this in white. Now here's when you're going to start doing some overlapping. So let's start overlapping over on the green and the white border. So pretty much right in the middle, so we can play it as safe as possible. Now I'm also going to be overlapping on the orange. So in this part, I'm going to go a little bit higher because the orange will be landing on top of the white. And I'll be going over and across the orange, coming back down to the middle of both the white and the green border, and continue the path. Okay, so now we have our white background. Let's go ahead and make some minor edits to this background. First thing I'm going to do is move it towards the back, and we're just going to drag and drop it. And the next thing I'm going to do is select the start and stop position of this part of the design. So let's go ahead and make sure they're in the right location. Let's go to the shaping tool, and the green is where it starts and the red is where it stops. And let's see what the machine is actually going to do. So it's starting pretty good. It's going down, and that's fine. That looks fine for now. But as you can see, once we start getting towards the end, it stops and it goes over to the bottom and it starts going to the top. Now this right here, when they both meet, it'll leave a line right in here. So you don't want to have that line, and you also don't want to have a gap. So it's either a line or a gap if you don't edit your start and your stop positions of each part of the design. So let's go over and edit your start and your stop. Let's go over to the shaping tool. I want to start this design on the bottom. You could also start it at the top. It's really up to you. But on this one, I'm going to start it on the bottom and I'm going to end it on the top. Now, I also want to set my angle lines right for this one. So if I change my angle lines, I will have the same issue that I was having before. Now, your start and your stop position work with your angle line. So if your angle line, it's not across from your start and your stop position, you will have the same effect where it leaves a line in the middle. So I want to make sure that my angle line is right across my start and my stop. And where it is right now, it's pretty good. So I probably won't have to make any changes to it. So let's go ahead and see how this will look. Let's go over to a slow redraw. And as you can see, it's starting on the bottom and is going all the way to the top without leaving a gap. So that's exactly what we wanted to see. Now let's go ahead and do the same thing for the rest. So let's go ahead and do the same thing to the other two backgrounds, the orange and the green. So just always make sure that you're overlapping. So I'm going to try to overlap as much as I can on the white border. So let's start in the middle of this white border. All right, so now we have our orange background. Let's do the same thing we did to the white. Let's go over to the shaping tool. Let's edit our starting and ending point and make sure that the angle is right across from them. All right, so now that we're done with our orange background, let's move on to the green background. Now, as you can tell, this green background does have a gradient, but I'm not going to be using a gradient because it's using a tatami stitch, and a gradient usually looks best with a satin stitch. So for this one, I'm not going to be using a gradient. Let's go over to our complex fill, and we're going to be doing the same thing. We're just going to be tracing and overlapping as much as we can. All right, so now we have our green background as well. Let's go ahead and move our bitmap all the way to the back and let's see how it all looks together right now. So as you can see here, we have the orange and the green background that are covering the white border. So let's move those two to the back as well. So let's select both of them and drag them to the back. So we did say that the orange needs to be on top of the white because we're overlapping the white, not the orange. So let's get the orange to be on top by doing the same thing, just dragging it over to the top. And as you can see, now the orange is covering the area that we needed to cover. Okay, so this is looking pretty good already. So let's go ahead and move on. All right, so now I'm going to be doing the helmet and I'm going to be using a complex fill. And since we're using Chroma Luxe, I have the magic wand, which is an amazing tool. It's like auto digitizing for one specific part of the design. So let's go ahead and select the magic wand and let's select the helmet. Now we can right click outside and we have our helmet already digitized. But I will make some changes to it. So let's go ahead and select our shaping tool. So since we have the orange background that has a horizontal angle, I don't want to do the same thing to this piece because it's on top of that. So what happens is there's going to be a lot of orange that is going to be bleeding through because they're both in the same angle. So I don't want that. What I want is for the bottom and the top to be a little bit different so that the top can stand out. So I have to change the angles of this and also the starting and ending point. So for this one, I'm going to just add a little bit of an angle and I'm going to start this one over on the bottom and ending it on the top. All right, so now that we have the helmet ready, let's move on to the letters. I don't know the name of this font, so I'm going to grab something that's very similar to it. So let's go over to our text tool and I'm just going to click on the side and let's look for a font that's closest to it. Let's see if maybe this one here works. Press OK. All right, so now let's write down the name, press the apply button, and let's change the color to the same color as the letters. And I'll be making some edits so it can land exactly in the same location as the one on the design is. Let's make it a little bigger. And now let's edit the curve that it has. We're just gonna bring it down. Now, I want to do something else to this font, which is take out the underlay, because this is going to be, I would say, almost considered small lettering. So I don't need too much of an underlay, or actually none at all, because I already have a white underbase. So let's go ahead and take that out. let's go over to our underlay option, and where it says parallel, let's uncheck it and press apply. All right, so I don't think I had to do too much more to these letters, maybe just some density once I resize the design, but we'll do that towards the end. So let's move on to the star. Now for the star, is going to be very simple. We just have to go over to the artwork tool, and there's a little arrow on the bottom, and we're just going to go down to where it says star, and it'll create a star once you click and drag, and then we can resize it afterwards. So let's go over to our selecting tool, and now I'm just resizing it to get it exactly where our design is. Now let's go ahead and right click on the star, and let's convert it to a complex fill. Now let's change the color to white, and let's take out any underlay in this as well. Let's go over to our underlay, and let's take out the underlay on the star as well, because we already have the underbase, which is the green background. So let's go ahead and press apply. Now we'll be making a little bit of changes to the star. So let's go over to our shaping tool, and I'm going to start it on one side and end it on the other. Now the same thing I said before, let's edit the start and the stop points of this part of the design, and also the angle, so that it doesn't hide with the background. All right, so now that the star is completed, we have a couple of things left. I'm going to delete the bitmap and just make some minor edits. So let's go over to the letters, and let's resize them a little bit. I'm also going to grab the orange. I'm going to bring it a little bit lower. All right, so now that I have the letters where I want them to be, I'm going to do another quick edit, which is just going to be my density. And for this, I'm going to make it 0.3 of density for the whole design. So let's go ahead and select the whole design. Let's go over to where it says density, and let's put it at 0.3. Now for density, it's really what works for you and what you're putting it on. In this case, I'm going to be putting on a polo, and I'm going to be using a cutaway stabilizer. So 0.3, I feel like it will work. But like always, if you're not sure, run a quick test, and like that you can find out if you need a little bit more or a little bit less density. I don't know if you guys can see it here, but if we zoom in and we see both of these parts of the border, the white has a nice tip on one of them, but not on the other side. And then the green has kind of like an ending point. So what I'm going to do is just add a satin stitch and make it a tip. And I'm just going to overlap and make a triangle. And I'm going to right click on it, convert it to a satin stitch. So now all I really have to do is just go over to my shaping tool and adjust the angle line so it can look like part of the design. And to do the same thing to the other side, I'm not going to take too much time. I'm going to just right click, copy, right click, paste, and over on the top, I'm going to mirror it so that I can put it on the other side. All right, so now that they both look pretty good, I'm going to do the same thing to the white. So let's go over and select the complex fill, and let's do the same thing to the white. All right, and now that we have this, we're pretty much set. Now, one last thing that I'm going to do here is add my trims. So for those of you that don't know what a jump stitch is basically one stitch going across the design over to the other side using the same thread. And then you're going to have that on top of your design, so you don't really want that. So let's go ahead and take those off. I'm going to select the whole design, going over to my commands tab, and to the end command, and selecting trim. Now let's press apply, and now we have our trims already set up. Okay, and that is it. Let's go ahead and put it in the machine, and let's see how they both come out, and afterwards compare them. All right, guys, these are the materials that we're going to be using for this project. On our left, we have our mighty hoop, which is a magnetic hoop. You don't have to use this. I just feel like this might work best. Then we have one sheet of cutaway stabilizer. And lastly, we have 2 polo shirts from Port Authority, 100% cotton. All right, guys, so this is the machine I'm going to be using for this project. It doesn't get any better than this. This is the Chroma MT1501. It's a 15 needle machine, and it runs all the way to 1,200 stitches a minute. So this is the one that I'm going to be using for this project. If you want to learn more about this machine, scroll down to the description below, and I'll have a link there for you. So I already have my garment hoop. All right, so all we have to do is just put the garment onto the machine, make sure it's nice and steady. Okay, so all we have to do now is just press the trace button. Okay guys, so we're pretty much ready to go. We have our garment hooped already. If you want to learn how to hoop a polo shirt the right way, scroll down to the description below. We'll have a video there for you. We also have the design already in our system. It's around 14,000 stitches, give or take around 14 minutes, because we are going to be running at 1,000 stitches a minute. So all we have left to do now is just press the start button. All right, so we're done with the auto digitizing. Let's see how it came out. You tell me.
Hey, what happened?
Okay, so we're completely done with the auto digitizing. Now let's see how the manual digitizing comes out. I already have my garment hooped, so let's go ahead and put it in the machine, trace it, and press start. Okay guys, so there we have it. Let's go ahead and get it out and see how it came out. All right. Well, it looks like I don't have to do any cleaning, so that's good for me. All right, so now let's go ahead and put them side to side and see how they compare. So here we have both of our polos. On the right, we have the auto digitized design, and on the left, we have our manually digitized design. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in and see exactly where our issues are with the auto digitized design, and let's go ahead and compare it over with the manually digitized design. Okay, so with the auto digitized design, the first thing I see is that there is a lot of puckering going on. And we use the same polo with the same stabilizer as our manually digitized design. The only difference is that since it made its own angle lines and it wasn't edited, you could potentially get a lot of puckering. Now, on top of that, because we have the puckering, we also have a lot of open gaps. And just like I mentioned when we were digitizing this design, is that it doesn't overlap your stitches. So you can really see that on the letters, how it has a lot of open gaps. Another thing that I'm seeing with the auto digitized design is that on the front part of the helmet, you can see how these lines don't look so neat because it was made out of a complex fill instead of line stitches or even a small satin stitch. Now for the gradient, as you can see, we don't really get a gradient. We get more of a solid colored line. Now this isn't so bad, but it's not ideal for a gradient. One last thing that I have to mention with this would be the border itself. Now the border, one is that it does have some gaps in between because it wasn't overlapping, but we already mentioned that. Another thing is that it doesn't have a nice satin border going around. And as you can see in front of the helmet, the lines are not well defined. All right, now let's go ahead and move on to the manually digitized design. The first thing right off the back, it looks really neat. There's no puckering going on. There's no gaps between parts of the design like in the auto digitized. And we have a nice thick border made out of satin stitches that just makes the design pop. Now, as you can tell, the letters are well defined and the front of the helmet as well. I hope that you were able to learn a little bit about auto versus manual digitizing and when to use each method. Remember, there are pros and cons to each. Although auto digitizing is a huge time saver in many cases, it shouldn't be solely relied upon to create a design. It's always important to learn the basics of manual digitizing so that you can make any necessary tweaks to your design if you need to. For a free trial of our Chroma digitizing software, head on over to ricoma.com or simply purchase it on shop.ricoma.com, which I've linked it in the description below. So now that we've seen the results, let's go over our pros and cons for auto digitizing and manual digitizing. So the pros for auto digitizing is that it's fast and it doesn't require any experience to use it. Now the cons is that you can't do intricate designs, you can't add special effects on it, and the main one is that it doesn't auto overlap. And now let's go over our manual digitizing pros and cons. The pros are that you get accurate and better looking results, you can add special effects, and you can overlap while you're digitizing. And now let's go over the cons. The first one is that it's very time consuming. Another one is that you need to be familiar with the software and all the features to be able to use them with your design. And there you have it. For more content about digitizing, embroidery, printing, and more, make sure you follow us on our YouTube and our Facebook group, Embroidery and Custom Apparel Mastery, which I've linked it in the description below. Also, follow us on Instagram, where we have almost 30,000 followers and share content just like this, host giveaways, and more. And finally, if you have any ideas for future episodes, make sure to share them down in the description below. All right, guys, I'll see you next time.